Hey, vintage booth owners, if you remember a few years ago when we started hearing terms like grand millennial, cottage core, and then it was dark academia, moody maximalism, then you are going to love this video because I am sharing what Pinterest is predicting will be the new aesthetic trends for 2026. So let's dive into that. So, first of all, what is Pinterest predicts? So Pinterest analyzes years of search data to identify trends before they peak. Historically, they're about 80% accurate, which is wild. And what I love about it is for vintage sellers is that Pinterest users aren't just scrolling for inspiration. They're planning, they're saving, they're decorating, they're being intentional with their purchases, they're buying. So that this report tells us what shoppers are craving emotionally, how they want their homes and wardrobes to feel, the language they're using to search for it. And in 2026, the big themes are emotion driven spaces, nostalgia with intention, and statement details that feel collected, not mass produced, which is basically vintage's entire personality. Okay, so the first one that I want to get into is it's not exactly on the list of Pinterest trends. It sort of is with their Wilderkind trend, but that is more beauty and fashion. I am going to just call this the umbrella theme, which is Biophilic Design. And that means it sounds really fancy and it's kind of hard to say, but it means bringing the natures, bringing the outside inside. People want their homes to feel alive. And it's about bringing nature indoors in a calm, intentional way. And it's not just, popping a plant in the corner. It's just an overall sense of calm. And so for vintage owners, this could mean bringing in stoneware, pottery, wooden bowls, more natural textures, botanical art, terrariums, cloches, planters, anything organic, earthy, even imperfect. And this still pairs beautifully with cottagecore and grand millennial shoppers, which is still a trending thing. People are still loving that, but they're just evolving their style to bring in more natural elements. And if you already have natural elements, you're actually really early to the trend and could create a really simple vignette with all natural items. To make it look aesthetically pleasing. The second trend I want to talk about from Pinterest is called Afrohemian Decor. And this is one of the fastest growing home trends in the report, especially among Gen X and boomers. So Afrohemian Decor blends African influence with bohemian warmth. And that means woven baskets, textured wall art, wood carvings, layered neutrals with rich patterns. Here's the key difference. This trend wants things to feel collected and not cluttered. So if you sell a global style decor, vintage textiles, or handmade looking items, group them together and name them the vibe. It will make a huge difference. And it turns it from kind of miscellaneous into intentional, which every vignette does. And that's why I'm always pushing creative vignette. Bring people in based on their interests with your vignettes. Okay, the next trend is fun. It's called Vamp Romantic. And it's like if dark academia grew up and started hosting dinner parties. So Vamp Romantic is moody, dramatic, and elegant. It incorporates deep reds, black, oxblood colors, brass candlesticks, ornate frames, dark florals, old books and trays, and vintage booths can absolutely shine here. And here's what I want you to hear. This trend sells emotion. People buy how it makes them feel, not just the object. And just a side note, funny story, my daughter, I took her to get her ears pierced at a tattoo parlor. And I've never been in a tattoo parlor before. And this was exactly the feel of this place. It had the coolest decor. I should have taken pictures, but it was a lot of taxidermy, a lot of just really dark velvet wallpaper. Very interesting, very moody maximalism with a glamorous feel. Okay, the next trend from Pinterest Trends is called Funhouse. And it's a little different, but I kind of like it. Funhouse is a vintage circus, okay? Playful design, bold personality, quirky but elevated. And if you've been in the vintage booth business for long enough, you know that quirky, weird, it always sells. So think bold colors, oddball lamps, playful art, sculptural ceramics, anything you might hear a customer say, I don't need this, but I love it. So it's, we're all a little weird, and it just gives them permission to put their weird pieces on spotlight. So instead of hiding it. And I think that's what 2026 is all about, is bringing out what makes you unique. Next up is extra celestial. So it's dreamy, cosmic, and soft, not sci-fi. So, you think moon and stars, cherubs, which I have always found. I love finding anything angel related. But you can also think like iridescent glass, moon and star imagery, of course, especially vintage moon and star. Super cool. Perfect fit for this. Mirrored elements, silver accents, and just really unique lighting. So if you sell vintage glass or anything that glows or shimmers or reflects, this is a beautiful way to reframe it. The next one is called Neo Deco, and it's like Art Deco, but modernized. So Neo Deco is brass, bar carts, bold geometry, glam silhouettes. If you've done this long enough, you see a lot of Art Deco out there, but it's just not the right exact piece. It might be a little too old looking. So this is the time for those pieces to shine, especially with higher end items. So when you could label it as Neo Deco, if you have signage in your booth that points people to those things, it will help them understand that it's an intentional style, and your buyers will be much more comfortable paying for that. Okay, so with Pinterest, it's not just home decor, it's also fashion, beauty, all those personal elements that people are looking for and being intentional about changing about themselves. And so there are some trends that we can bring into our vintage booths. You may already be doing it. Okay, so the next one is called Brooched. Okay, and this one makes me smile because it never left vintage booths. In fact, we probably all have brooches in our booth, and I constantly find them. So they're back in a big way. Based on Pinterest research and trending searches, millennials and Gen Z wear them on their jackets, their sweaters, their hats. They're styled as statement pieces, and they're layered and bold. So if you sell pins, costume jewelry, brooches, 2026 is your moment. Put those pieces out on display so people can see them. Don't style them like leftovers. Don't hide them on the bottom shelf. Put them on fabric, put them on mannequins, and show people how to wear them. The next fashion trend that we can incorporate is called Poetcore. Well, there's two, Poetcore and Laced Up. So Poetcore is quiet luxury with a vintage soul. We're thinking books, writing desks, satchels, lamps, and thoughtful, intelligent pieces. Think book talk, people that are constantly talking about what books they're reading, what they want to read, and book clubs. That is a beautiful vignette. If you have a writing desk, old books, satchels, that would make a really cool show-stopping vignette. Then I mentioned Laced Up. So lace doilies, if you have them waiting to bring into your booth, bring them in now. Put up a sign, Laced Up, and it's bringing romance back. So lace, linens, doilies, delicate items, and they're all about nostalgia. And so it's just these searches on Pinterest are bringing them to the limelight, and you should be bringing them into your booth. So best creative vignette, create a sign that shows the intentional use of doilies and lace, and make it easy for people to buy. So if you're not using Pinterest in your vintage booth strategy, you really should start. And I have a really cool special offer for you. All of these trends that we could be using in our booth, probably with items that you already have. And what you do is you just put it into an intentional vignette. I have created magazine covers style images that you can use, either print out or use on social media to share to the world that you have these items in stock. To print them, I would send them to a CVS or Walgreens to make it, that high gloss look, that magazine cover style, because they are really rich and detailed. I will pop up some of them here, but take a look. I also have a Canva template, so if you want to pop your logo on there, you definitely can to make it a more branded piece. But when you use the signage, it brings people in. It's a showstopper, and then you can create better groupings, vignettes, clearer storytelling, which is one thing that we always need to be doing with our vignettes, and that is the easiest way to do it. And if people are already seeing that on Pinterest, on their apps, on their computers, and then they come into the store or they see it on your social media, then they'll recognize it and they'll want to come in and shop your booth. So when people can name what they're drawn to, when they say, "Oh, I'm looking for the Funhouse. I'm a Poetcore girly," people are looking for those kind of things. So like I said at the beginning, these Pinterest predicts are about 80% right, which is crazy. And it is like a crystal ball. They're trying to predict what will happen this year. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of falls out through the year. But and I'd love to know if you're going to take up any of these things. I am all over the biophilic design, the Wilderkin. I'm excited about that one, about bringing nature in. Definitely the laced up, the brooched. I will start incorporating all those immediately. So walk around your booth and just think, which of these stories am I telling already? And just create groupings based on that. And you might realize you're more on trend than you think. And that is so good for 2026. I'm excited for this year. I think it's going to be awesome for vintage booth sellers and vintage sellers overall. So if you're not already a member of our vintage booth community over on Facebook, it's a free community. We'd love to see you over there. And be sure to join my newsletter so you never miss a thing. Send weekly updates. And so you're always in the loop. And I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel, and I will pop up a playlist if you are interested in watching any more of these trending for this year videos. And thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.